Hello, everybody. It's James here with WSI, and my next guest, he is a 7-time tag team champion, a TNA original. It is Wildcat Chris Harris. How are you doing, my friend?
I'm doing great, James. Thank you for having me, man.
Yeah, I was waiting for you to say how are you doing, and I had like a whole line of how I was doing in this last 5 minutes, but I won't. It's fine. From Kentucky as well. I know I said this before, but how come you staying in Kentucky then instead of moving down to Florida like every other wrestler?
I actually did have my little stint in Florida. I lived in Orlando for about 5 years.
Hmm?
So I lived the Florida life and tried it for a while, enjoyed it, but you always wind up back home.
Yeah, that's fair enough. I spoke to Exotic Adrian Street 2 days ago, in fact, and he was in Florida for 40 years. And then at the age of, what,
So,
77 or something, he just went, right, we're going back to Wales. And the sun couldn't keep you then.
uh, I don't know. I mean, I enjoyed it, but it just brought me back here. So
Yeah. Just off. In fact, actually, this sort of brings me to my first question is, I'm presuming you were, a wrestling fan from early age, and that's what spurred you to get on into the business. And you did a lot of indies, independent shows in Kentucky and surrounding areas like Ohio. How did you end up going from the indies in that area to getting a job or a brief job with WWF doing enhancement work?
um, the training center that I went to was up in Ohio, Northern Ohio, and um, they had connections through to WWF. Yeah, just to be enhancement, and I had only been in the business less than 2 years at the time, so it was something I thought about, and I just thought I'm so early in my career that it can't hurt to get that experience in there. So yeah, I did a couple matches with them in '96.
Yeah, I've actually got the two matches you did. It was the same Superstars taping, I think August 20th, excuse me. Both members of the APA, future APA, Farouk and Bradshaw. Which of the two was harder to work with, let's say?
Oh, I wouldn't say either of them was hard to work with. That was both when early in their WWF careers. I took a couple stiff shots from Bradshaw, but that shouldn't be a surprise to anybody. But yeah, it is interesting that those are the two I wound up with when they became a tag team later on. So yeah, I just chalked it up with good experience, and I can always say that I was in there with APA.
Yeah, stiffest I should have said instead of hardest, but yeah, I mean two of the snugger wrestlers. I'm led to
Yeah,
believe.
they both made it count. But you know what? That was my job, so it
Yeah.
worked out well.
What does an enhancement talent get paid for their duties? Do you get paid per match or per day, basically?
Wow. Probably per match. You have it there in your research. I guess I did it in one day. So, you know what? I can't remember. I want to say either you know 300 per match, or could have been 500 per day. Uh, but they definitely take care of the enhancement talent. Of course, you get your catering, all the perks that go with it. So, and then you can make your connections as well. So it was good all around.
Yeah, I always like to harp on the enhancement days quite a lot. So if you could tell me from the beginning of the day when you get to the arena, so I think it was Columbus, Ohio, and who greets you when you get to the arena, who settles you into the locker room, who tells you what you're going to be doing that evening, and anything else of that nature.
Good Lord, man, I can't remember. It's been so long. I was with a group of guys, so I guess I just kind of followed them as far as what to do, when to do it. I'm sure somebody had to greet us, let us know what we were doing. Went through the matches. Um, I do remember one thing I do remember is when we were going through the names of people you could go with. I People may think I'm crazy for having Bradshaw and Farouk, but I remember a couple of the other names that were in there with Sid, Vader. I mean, so you were in for a night, no matter which direction you took. So but yeah, we just get settled in and probably get settled in catering. Might be the first thing, and then they kind of let you know what's going on from there. And obviously, you introduce yourself to everybody because you never know what kind of connections you can make. So, but like I said, I was so early in the business. I mean, I probably wasn't ready for anything at the time. I mean, this was just chalked up for experience. I could say I did it, and then kind of went on with my career.
Have you ever been quieter in a locker room than you were that day?
Quieter?
Yeah, as in the old advice of keep your ears open and your mouth shut.
Oh, absolutely. Sometimes I take that too far. I mean, I'm a quiet guy anyway. So yeah, I mean, in times like that, you just go in, you keep your mouth shut. But sometimes I can, come back to haunt you. My later days with WWE, same thing. I was still just a quiet guy. I tried to talk to everybody, but you kind of kept to yourself. And some people kind of look, that can rub some people the wrong way, where you think you might be better than anybody else. And but I would definitely give that advice to those that are there for enhancement. You definitely want to introduce yourself to everybody. Keep your ears open for any advice or anything they want to give you. But for the most part, yeah, you want to keep your mouth shut because you're there for one job and you want to stick to that.
Yeah. Since you sort of just hinted there that you're a bit of an introvert and quite quiet, I mean, do you have to work doubly hard then to integrate into the locker room? Because I imagine, especially as a younger me, I would have found that really difficult to get up, shake everybody's hand, to the WWF champion. I would have found that really difficult. Is that something that you just have to overcome, basically?
Yeah, it's definitely out of my comfort zone. But those are the times, especially in that business, that's when you have to step out and walk around to everybody and introduce yourself. And some may remember that, but others may may not give you a 1 second look. But that's the true etiquette of the business, and you have to force yourself to do it.
Absolutely. Further on from that, the next time you're on the national scene is WCW, and I hadn't realised that you were in WCW because I was only watching Nitro at that point, because over in the UK, where the shows were and what channels they were completely different in America, and I hadn't realised you were on Worldwide quite a lot in the last year or so. Before we get to Worldwide, I've got to talk about the power plant and give me the first day of walking into the power plant and what Sarge put you through training-wise.
I'll have to cut you off there, man, because I never stepped into the power plant.
Oh, really? I thought you did. Oh dear. Right.
No.
Well, oh, okay then.
No, I never went through there. I've never even been in the power plant.
Right, well then, that's my shitty research there exposed, isn't it? I was absolutely positive you've been in the power plant, but there you go. So I'll scrub all that off then. So who gives you the call to come to WCW then? Who's the guy who recommended you?
I had kind of branched off into my other indies and made connections in Nashville, Tennessee. And I was working for Burt Prentice down there. And having a great run down there. But he has his connections in the business, and he was connected to Terry Taylor, who at that time was talent relations for WCW. So like you said, this was the last year they were in business. So I'm not sure what was going on behind the scenes. I don't know about their money spending, but they were bringing a group of guys in. So if you were watching the Nitro or Thunder, you may have caught us on doing security, but then we were getting the matches on, as you said, Worldwide, and then also the WCW Saturday Night show. So that was our connection there. He would just send a group of guys in. Now there were a group of guys that were being featured that had come from the power plant, and we were kind of working a lot with those type of guys. But that was the connection. And so we were coming in each week, doing our security duties, but also taking advantage of getting matches on Saturday night and Worldwide.
Right. So when you say security, you were legitimate security then, not just security for the purposes of television.
Yeah, we were security that could get the shit beat out of us.
Who was the head of
We,
security?
we were in part of the, I don't know if you remember the R&B security for Russo and Bischoff. We were the
Vaguely,
R&B.
yeah. Is
Yeah,
this
we
when
were
he
the
had
R.
the Pope mobile going down at one point?
It probably was. Yeah, yeah. It was definitely during those days, but they actually had T-shirts said R&B security, and we kind of made a running joke that we were the run and bump security.
It's always good to have bumping security, let me tell you. Did you
Right.
work actually with Doug Dillinger then, the erstwhile head of security of WCW, who may fall asleep at any point?
Sure did. We worked with Doug every time. He was in charge of us.
Mm-hmm.
He was actually a pretty cool guy looking back on it. I mean, he had to be stern because he was in charge of us and had to tell us exactly what to do. But yeah, Doug was a really good guy.
Were you doing backstage, or were you doing, round the ring, keep crowd control, that kind of thing as well?
Oh no, not crowd control. No, if we were out there, it was to serve a purpose for somebody to knock us around.
Yeah. Fair enough then. With your stint on Worldwide, I'm going to give you a few names here. I'm just going to move away from the power plant comments before as well. Here we go. 3 Count, Natural Born Thrillers, the Mamalukes, the Young Dragons. Some of the better known sort of young guys who are in WCW in the last year. Who would you say out of, let's say, everyone I've named and all the guys you worked with, you thought was real talent that was going to go really far, even though they were young in the business?
Oh wow. You almost can't ignore O'Hare and Jindrak. They were being featured as a tag team at the time, and they're just big dudes. Jindrak was actually the brains of that tag team. He really kind of had it together. I thought, as far as in-ring work, and then O'Hare was just so impressive. All you had to do was just school that guy a little bit, and he was going to be a star. So, yeah, they were really pushing those guys, and at the time, I mean, we were the connection there that I had from Nashville to go there. Those guys out of the power plant were also being sent to the Nashville area to almost as a developmental territory. So we got really close with those those guys. I remember, Elix Skipper, Mike Sanders, just to name a few of those guys.
Above average. That must be the worst nickname I've ever heard a wrestler ever have. Above average.
Above average, yeah. I guess he wanted the to be the new AA, so new double A. But we became close with those guys, so I always enjoyed getting in the ring with those guys. We got to do it on the indie level, and then obviously got to do it for the Saturday night or worldwide taping. So, but those guys, I mean, they come out of the power plant. They were very talented, and they were all in shape. I mean, you could tell those guys they were drilled with the drills or the calisthenics, things like that. So they were definitely in shape.
Did you go on the Australia tour?
No, I didn't go on that.
Fair enough then. My next one was going to be the Juventud Guerrera story, but I'll leave that one there. Did you also? I've already written Doug Dillinger. I'm trying to think. So with WWF buying WCW, were you hopeful that you were going to get picked up, or were you sort of thinking, well, I've not been featured that much, and just whatever happens, happens?
That's how you had to look at it. Yeah, by that point, I was there the entire year of 2000, and I guess I've been doing well, and they were impressed enough that I wound up signing a contract in October of that year. And then, of course, 6 months later, they're out of business. So, yeah, I had high hopes, especially considering I had just signed a contract with one of the big two. That's every kid's dream back then. So I was looking forward to really getting onto some stuff. And we even talked about a couple ideas. But, yeah, when that happened, it was, I guess the best way to say it would be all the guys that were so low on the totem pole. They were kind of let go. All the higher guys, as we know, they just filled out their contract and got to sit home and get paid. So a lot of those big names, that's a lot of the reason they didn't switch over. But a lot of the mid to upper card guys are the ones that they took and decided to do something with, and even some of the power plant guys got signed there, and we're doing some developmental things. I think actually then it was back in Cincinnati. So yeah, I was hopeful, but it didn't surprise me because I was one of the few that was featured on their secondary shows. So I wasn't sure. I was still early in my career, so I wasn't sure how that all worked, but it kind of made sense. I mean, there were so many guys on that list to be taken up by WWE. So they're gonna get their pick of who they want, and obviously they're gonna want to grab some guys that they can have some long lasting get something out of.
Yeah, with your contract, so WWE buys obviously, or do they buy all the WC contracts, not the Turner Entertainment contracts that they sign, or Turner AOL contracts that the big stars sign with? But what happened with yours specifically? Did they pay you out, or how does that work?
I believe I had maybe a 90-day clause, so I got paid for the 90 days, but that was it. It just goes away then after that.
Fair enough then. A couple more on WCW. Before I ask the other question, where you were on a pay-per-view, any of the big stars of WCW, did you ever talk to any of them? Were any particularly personable with you? Did you go up to them asking advice? Or is it because, you're a bit introverted, you didn't ask as much advice as maybe you could have done?
There's a few that stand out, but it was mostly the guys I was working with. 3 Count was really cool with us. Of course, they were early in their careers, so they understood what it was like to be the newer guys. But yeah, I had good conversations with Curt Hennig, Shane Douglas. These are guys that I got to work with, and they would definitely critique anything that I was doing or that I could do better. So I was definitely listening to those guys, but I don't remember ever going up to anyone in particular to ask them to watch my match or anything like that, because I was in there with somebody that knew what they were doing, so I had already had an in with those guys, and Booker T was also another one that I got to work with. So yeah, I was learning from the best.
Is it one of those things where if you're working with somebody very experienced, Shane Douglas, Curt Hennig, etc., all the discussion of the match is, follow me, kid, give me your 2 best moves, and we'll do the rest out there. You just follow my lead.
It's very, very similar to that. This was a little bit, I'd say it was more open than my, let's say, the WWF experience that I had with Farouk and Bradshaw. Those enhancement matches were pretty much one-sided, whereas the WCW matches, they were looking for it to be a competitive type match. So I really appreciated that. Those guys were great with that. Looking back on those matches, I mean, they definitely gave me a little bit, and not just the bigger names, but even the younger guys I was working with. I mean, it was always meant to be some sort of a competitive match, but in the end, it was there to feature them. So, but yeah, great experience all the way around.
Yeah, and the one time you were on WCW pay-per-view, I won't even spoil it in case people don't know, but you know what it is, and you were impersonating somebody. Who comes to you with the idea, hey, you're going to be on pay-per-view doing this?
Well, I mean, we had done the security for all the big shows, even the pay-per-views. So we had experience at least being involved. But yeah, when they came to me with this, they I guess it had to do with the resemblance factor. But they said we have an idea of where we're going to paint you up and you're going to be Sting. And yeah, I mean, it was pretty incredible. But this was also I want to say this is during the phase where I was under contract, so they may have been looking more towards doing something with me than the other guys, because I was one of the few that did sign a contract. So I guess with the resemblance, at least resemblance from the Crow Sting, he didn't have quite as long hair anymore. But yeah, when they had this idea to go, I was put into that role. Still one of my favorites to this day, but Sting was the one that actually was painting my face. So to hear it from Sting himself, where he's looking at it, he's like, man, it's like looking in a mirror. I took that as a huge compliment from him. So yeah, well, had a lot of fun with that, and yeah, that's what a lot of people still remember that to this day.
Yeah, do you remember ever someone asking you to like trim your hair a bit just to look a bit more like Sting, or was that just out of the question?
No, they never. I would have done it, but they never asked. I think they were looking for the other version. All he had really done. He was still in the outfit, but all he had really done is just cut his hair a little bit. So I think they wanted if I remember correct, during that it was the Halloween Havoc of that year, and they were doing a series of different Stings, and so everybody had a different phase of Sting, and I was just more of the Crow Sting. So I think they may have been actually looking for that look, with the longer hair. So at that point, it really wasn't an issue at all. But of course, I would have done whatever they asked.
Would you, if they'd asked you to be the flat top Surfer Sting, would you have done it?
Well, yeah. I mean, at that point, you have to go with what they want, even if it's for a one night thing. I mean, it would have drastically changed my appearance, but yeah, maybe I would have.
We're skipping ahead slightly, but with Sting, talk about Sting, and did you have any interaction with Sting much in TNA? Did you talk to him much backstage? Was he approachable? That kind of thing.
Oh, very, yeah. I remember just small talk with Sting back in the WCW days, but yeah, when he came to TNA, he was, he didn't have quite as much pressure on him as it did those last the dying days of WCW. I'm sure a lot of those top guys were wondering what was going to happen. But yeah, when Sting came to TNA, he was the first huge name that we really had that was there for the company. He was there to perform any way he could to help the young guys, to help the company succeed. And so back then he was very approachable. I don't think I worked with him much in the beginning, but in later years we did a few things together. So yeah, Sting was great in the locker room.
Is there anything particular that Sting has taught you, or thought you brought to, or you thought he brought to the table in TNA? Because he was, as far as I could tell, TNA's biggest star, definitely in the early years as well. And I think he was. I don't know. I almost think that he, more of the attention should have been on Sting and everything built around him. But it seemed like he was just part time, really.
That could have been it. I mean, I don't know the structure of his contract, but maybe he only had a certain amount of dates he was doing. But I feel like they were going to use him the best they could, and he was there to give us credibility. We're an upstart company, very new, but to have the name Sting attached to us, especially so early on. I mean, this was 2002, and WCW just went down in 2001, so that was a really, really big deal for us to get Sting and add some really hard credibility to the company.
Now, speaking of TNA, you and James Storm were already teaming as America's Most Wanted here and there beforehand. How long would the tag team going before TNA becomes a thing?
No, TNA was our first time.
Right, I have somewhere that you teamed at one other time. But the internet's always right, as we all know. So,
well, that could be possible. I may not remember it because we weren't a team at the time. Because there was a lot of different pairings. I mean, for all I know, we could have teamed on WCW, but I can't necessarily remember. And then in my Nashville days, I know I wrestled him a lot. We were opposing each other quite a bit. And we had really good chemistry in the ring together. But I thought my first remembering of us teaming was TNA, but maybe your research has different.
I'd never like to nail my colours to the mast on that kind of thing. I've been wrong many times before, so we'll leave that one open. But how long before TNA became a thing did you first hear of the project, and when were you approached?
That was, I guess it would have been the first day. We did 2 tapings the first day. The first taping, I was in the Gauntlet for the Gold match. Excuse me. I think Storm had tag team match. And then for the second taping, right away, they had an idea. I think, I think they were obviously very interested in us for us to even get that position. But I think they wanted to sign us, or we were signed, but they wanted to do something with us. They just didn't have any idea what to do. There were so many moving parts in the beginning there. They had to focus a lot on the stars that they were able to get for this, and then obviously wanted to bring up some new younger stars as well, and they had to concentrate on that. The X division was new at the time, so they were really focusing on some stars to build around that. But they also had to focus on the tag team situation, and they had the idea to put us together, and I think it was honestly, I mean, I can't say I ever was told this, but I think it was the idea of we want these guys, let's just throw them together and see what happens. And that's when you get Storm and myself, we get our minds together and we're like, hey, if this is the opportunity that we've been given, then let's run with it. Let's take it as far as we can take it and really make a name for ourselves. So I think it was really that simple in the beginning.
It's funny how many great tag teams are made up of just two guys who they can't quite figure out what to do with them. And they put them together and say, well, let's see what happens.
I think that, honestly, I think that happened later on, too, with Beer Money. Both Storm and Bobby Roode were well established in TNA, but I think that was at a position where, hey, we got to do something with these guys. You can't let them go. They're hugely talented. And I think it was one of those, they put them together. And I mean, I've heard that from both those guys. Where it was like, okay, well, let's see what we can get out of them as a tag team. And they were both smart enough to really run with it. And, look at how exciting and big Beer Money became.
With TNA, how much credence did you give to the idea that TNA was going to be a long-term thing, really? I mean, the first shows you got to, did you look around and think, is this just going to be another gig like so many others? Because there have been all these little upstarts, like Hulk Hogan had like Excitement Wrestling Federation. There was a hardcore XPW, I think, out west somewhere. WWA, which was an Australian pay-per-view. It seemed to just be running big events on pay-per-view with Buff Bagwell and Jarrett as well. I mean, how with TNA, I mean, did you think it was going to be successful at all?
Well, when I was first approached with it, that may have been in the back of my mind. I think in the back of a lot of people's minds, because there were so many in that year or so after WCW, there was a lot of things trying to get off the ground, and that had tried and failed. I was a part of a couple of them. So yeah, when you hear about this new group out of Nashville coming around, of course, in the back of your mind, you're like, well, I don't know if this is going to work or not, but let's take it and run with it as far as we can. And I was going to be one of the key players in that. So I was willing to make a run for it. I mean, how long? I don't know. Cause even in those early days, you hear the rumblings of, they're going to go out of business. They won't be in business next week or next month. I mean, that was constant. And it almost got to the point where you hear it so much, it's like, screw you guys, we're going to make this work. And then it doesn't become, hey, I'm just one of the many that's part of this. It becomes where, hey, this is my company now. I'm going to throw everything I can to make this thing work, because we got all these doubters out there that are just so negative about it. And there were some, financial difficulties in the early days, but any upstart company will have that unless you have a millionaire backing you. So, there were some struggles there, but I mean, you can hear all the stories you want, but I mean, it goes to show you that TNA was supposed to be here, because we went through a lot of struggles in the early days and came out ahead on top. So, in the future. So, yeah, there was a lot of different struggles, but we were 100% on board and wanted to do whatever we could do as far as our part goes.
I'll ask you this then. Vince Russo comes in about a month or so after TNA becomes debuts, basically. And it always strikes me as odd that Jeff Jarrett and Vince Russo were so pally with each other, because you think, to look at them, you'd think they'd be on opposite ends of the spectrum philosophically in wrestling. But memories of Vince Russo coming in, what did you think he brought to TNA, and were you a fan of Vince?
Well, I was looking forward to working with him just because he did have a creative mind. You can't take that away from him. But of course, I heard, just like everybody else heard, WWE, he had a filter with Vince McMahon. In WCW, he was given free reign, although, there's a lot of behind the scenes that we didn't know of, that he was battling with the corporate. But I still felt like he had something to add to it. And yeah, he was close with Jeff from WCW days. And so in TNA, yeah, I mean, I felt like he was brought in, and I think his heart was in the right place. He wanted to make things work. Even though some of the ideas may be crazy, not every one of us are going to come up with 100% great ideas. I mean, there's going to be some flops in there. But I was looking forward to working with him. I think a lot of the younger guys were, because he had been known to try to work with the newer, younger guys. So yeah, I mean, I was really looking forward to it. I had, I don't want to say prior experience, but there was with the WCW, he was riding a lot at that last year. So while he wouldn't remember me, I knew that, but he was still around. I got to kind of watch him work a little bit. So yeah, I mean, I looked at it as a plus, and I think a lot of other guys did too. Maybe those that had negative experience with him maybe were not, but like I said, we were all on board with this thing and wanted to take it as far as we could.
Did Vince take a particular interest in you and James in the early days? Do you remember him? Did he ever sit down and have a chat with you, to figure out what you guys were all about going forward, or anything of that nature?
No, I mean, I can't remember the dates exactly, but I know we were going to be featured as the tag this after the tag team was going. Very early. I mean, nothing set in stone, but I remember when he came aboard, yeah, we were off TV for a number of weeks, and we were still showing up. I mean, I remember even taking the time to write out some ideas to give to him, and I don't know if he read them or if he threw them away. Who knows? But we were still pushing to get in there, and yeah, he just hadn't. I don't know if he was just focused on other things. I'm not sure, but no, there was a time where Vince kept us off TV. He didn't have a lot of interest in Storm and myself. So we were off for a while, and then finally there was enough, I guess, nudging and enough pushing that they wound up giving us a dark match at one of the, I guess it would have been pay-per-view at the time in Nashville. So we got a dark match. And the way that, I mean, we had the match was great, but I think what really noticed was the reaction from the fans, because Storm is homegrown talent, and I had spent so much time in Nashville that they were just waiting to see us again, and so the fans were behind us, and I think that really took notice. And from that dark match on, we were back in the eyes of Vince and the writers, to where, okay, let's take advantage of this and let's run with it. So I didn't like being off TV or the pay-per-views for a number of weeks, but when they gave us the dark match, we were like, okay, here's the crack in the door again. Let's bust it open.
Absolutely. With Vince Russo, where did Ed Ferrara and Disco Inferno sort of slot in? Were they, did you have much action with them, because they at certain times were like almost as co-writers or subordinates, or, that kind of thing to feed ideas in as well?
I think Ed was there from the beginning. So I think he was. Now, he wasn't there long, so I didn't have a long-lasting relationship with Ed, but he was there in the earlier days, I think, helping with the writing. Vince was head writer, and if I can remember right, I don't think Disco came in until later on. So in those early days, it wasn't. I don't think he really had involvement in it. However, I believe he was close to Vince, so he was probably in Vince's ear to maybe run some ideas off. And if you know anything about Glenn Gilberti, man, he's notorious for just hammering some ideas in there to where he can make the worst idea sound like it's the best best thing around. So yeah, I can only imagine some of the ideas he threw at Vince, and maybe Vince used them. Who knows?
Well, we never saw Bill Ding, the evil architect. I know that. Did you ever hear of any of Disco Inferno's classic ideas that never made it to TV?
I probably had. I can't. Nothing comes to mind right
No,
now.
that's fine then. I always like to ask this as well about Vince Russo. Some of his more interesting match stipulations that he came up with over the years. Do any of them stick out in your mind?
I know he liked putting things on a pole. I can't. Nothing stands out.
That's fine then. I'll tell you what then. This is going back to the early days again. It sort of ties in with Vince and Jeff Jarrett. Is Jerry Jarrett? Did you ever spend much time with Jerry? And what was his role in TNA? Was he more just like a silent partner, or was he actively at the TV tapings or pay-per-view tapings, as it were?
No, Jerry was active in the beginning. He was very much a part of the writing team. I don't know a lot of the behind the scenes workings when they brought Vince on, because I think Vince and Jerry were very different styles. So I'm not sure what position that put Jeff in, to where he had to kind of work both sides. But yeah, Jerry was very much hands on in the beginning, and we had many conversations with him as far as the tag team goes, or the matches as the programs as we would go on future weeks. But yeah, I had very good experience with Jerry.
Yeah, was he missed when he departed then, from your point of view?
I wasn't sure what was going on, but yeah, I mean, I guess he was missed at the time. I mean, we were, kind of like, in the business. I mean, the next day, I mean, you got to move forward. So whatever the situation was, I'm not sure, but yeah, I mean, when at some point Jerry was out, and so we just had to keep pursuing.
And also, I was looking through your Twitter briefly just to get some more ideas of what to ask you, and I saw something you've written where it really does seem like you're really a Jeff Jarrett guy. You really appreciated him as, working with him as a boss. So take a couple of minutes if you can. Talk about Jeff Jarrett as a boss and what he brought to the table and why you respected him.
Well, I'll go back to when we were first approached with the idea of a new promotion. A lot of us may have been, okay, here's another one. We'll see how long this lasts or what happens. But when Jeff's name was attached to it, that gave me instant credibility, or credibility to me. And knowing that Jeff and Jerry were both a part of it, because Jerry had done this for years. I mean, he made a career out of running his business, and Jeff saw the inner workings of it. So I felt like if any company had a good chance, it was them. So just to know Jeff was attached to it, I had met Jeff back in WCW, and so I think when he was acquiring talent, I was already on his radar. So same with Storm. So yeah, I mean, I credit with him given the credibility to the company, but I never knew just how great of a businessman he was. I mean, a lot of us can hear it nowadays on his podcast when he gets into the inner workings of decision making that he had, but he was hands-on with everything. Not only creative, which is all I ever experienced with him, but he was running everything with TNA. So I mean, he had so many different roles, and I can only imagine some of the pressure he was under. But Jeff wore all those hats, man, and he did a great job. I guess he maybe designated certain people to certain areas to help him out, but yeah, man, I give him all the credit in the world to be able to put all that on his shoulders, and he was very determined. I mean, there was nothing in that man's brain that was going to say that TNA was going to be a failure. So I give all that credit to him, and even all these years later, I listened to his podcast and just thinking, and there's so many times I'm thinking to myself, well, I was there for that, so I remember this, but I didn't know what was going on behind the scenes. So for him to explain it and give reasoning behind all the decisions that were made, I mean, it just makes a lot of sense. And gives me a whole new interest in what he was doing at the time, and yeah, just everything he was doing. So yeah, I credit a lot to him.
Okay, so I'm going to play a bit of a game with you now. It's called Name Association. I'm going to give you some sentences, some descriptors, and you tell me who best suits that description. TNA locker room only if you could, and you cannot say yourself. And the first sentence I've got for you is funniest person in the locker room.
Had to be Road Dogg, BG James.
Jokes or just a general manner?
Just all around. I mean, he, yeah, no matter what was going on, he can always make you laugh. But I also have to add on to that, Eric Young. Eric Young is a funny guy, man.
With Eric Young, I always hear that Eric Young was basically like the most talented wrestler in the company. Or, you know, could be argued that because he could actually turn his hand to anything, serious, funny, whatever. And he never really was ever pushed in any sort of meaningful way long term.
Yeah, I mean, Eric could do anything, and he proved that. I remember because I was close with Eric. We were on the road together every week, and he would always tell us. He said, "Whatever I can do it. I can do it all. I can do it anything." And not in a cocky way. He was just saying, "Whatever they give me," he said, I can make it work. And as a babyface, he said, I could go out there and be like a Hulk Hogan if I had to. And I might have just kind of passed it by at the time, but it was true. I mean, every platform they gave him and said, you go out there and make this work, Eric did it. And like you said, whether he's a babyface, whether he's a heel, and then just to be around the guy. I mean, he's just an entertaining guy. I mean, hell, if they just told him to go out there and be himself, it would be entertaining.
And a good fisherman as well, I believe. Or is it hunter? I can never remember which.
Yeah, he did his own fishing show.
Yes, that's it. I knew it was something like that. Next one is last man standing at the bar.
Oh, wow. And you said I can't say me?
Yeah, I'm afraid not.
Even if I thought of days with myself, I'd have to say that the one guy that was always standing beside me was Abyss.
Haha, fine answer. The most beautiful woman wrestler / valet, etc. in real life.
Oh, I'd have to say Gail. And I might be biased with that, but just all around great person Gail was. I loved my conversations with her, whether it was about life, about business. We shared a lot about the business, but that girl, she's just a beautiful, beautiful person.
Yeah, definitely. Biggest bully?
Well, Bully Ray.
Oh, well, you can't ask for a better answer than that, I suppose. Most legit, tough, badass?
I might have to go with Abyss on that one too.
Really?
Yeah, we
seems like a
came
gentle
from
guy.
Yeah, he is. But you get on his bad side, and it comes out. So, but yeah, you'll hear that about him. He's the sweetest, nicest guy. You may even call him the gentle giant. But we came from the same area, came up in the business together. So I saw some dumbasses try to test him a few times, and he took care of business. So I would just have to take that over into the TNA locker room. It was really hard to say back then because I just felt like we had such a good locker room. Nobody was really trying to test the other, but yeah, when put to it, I would put him up on top of the list.
Well, that might actually come up. Abyss might come up in a future question. So hold on to that name. Who've we got? Smelliest wrestler.
That might have to be Abyss.
Okay, then.
He's taking the cake on a lot of these.
I didn't even think you were going to say that until the words left my mouth. Biggest stooge for the dirt sheets?
I don't know firsthand on this, but I've heard Terry Taylor was very involved in things like that. Now that I cannot back that up. I've just heard that in stories from others that Terry was definitely in their ear. Whether that's true or not, I'm not sure, but that's all I could really think of because I didn't know anybody personally that was making some phone calls.
No, that's interesting. That is an interesting answer I've never had before. Who was ultimately the most talented wrestler you ever shared the ring with? 6 or 4-sided?
In the TNA locker room, I would have to say AJ would probably be at the top of the list. But I also have to throw in there Bobby Roode as well. I always thought Bobby Roode was one of the most talented out there, could get anything over. And I kind of feel like, I mean, I hope he's making all the money he can possibly make right now, but I feel like they're missing the boat on Bobby Roode, that WWE could really do something with him.
It's funny that you said AJ Styles and Bobby Roode, because I'm led to believe that when those two were in the Royal Rumble match together, the most recent one, the crowd chanted TNA. I thought that was a funny touch.
I heard it. I looked right at my wife, and we kind of laughed at each other because, and that was only a matter of seconds, and the crowd picked up on it. So that just tells you right there what they remember.
Yeah. The clumsiest wrestler.
Oh, gosh. I don't know. Nobody's coming to mind right now. I can't. I don't have an answer for that one.
Okay. Stiffest / most reckless.
I
can come back to it if you want me to.
Yeah, I don't have one for that either.
No, fair enough then. Let me have a look. Biggest pothead.
Oh, good Lord. I got a list for you on that one. Yeah, I'll leave that one.
That's fine. That's absolutely fine. The most underrated wrestler in TNA.
Yeah, I'd have to go with Eric Young. I feel like, kind of what I said before. I mean, given the situation, he'd make it work. And I just don't know if he was ever really given that his due. They did push him at times and took him to the top, but it wasn't long-lived. So, Eric was underrated at the time.
Do you think he was tarred with the brush of good hand? But that can also sort of be like a blessing and a curse in a certain sense.
He could have been, because I think they finally woke up and realized that if anybody could get anything over, it'd be Eric. So, I mean, hell, that guy got out and put on a turkey suit for Thanksgiving and made it work. So, he made it entertaining.
I've got a couple more then. Best and worst road agents.
Oh, I like Dutch. Dutch Mantel was good. I felt like he brought a lot of experience to the table, and he was also part of the old regiment. So I consider myself old school. So a lot of what he said was going to make more sense to me. So Dutch would be a good one. Also, in later years, I felt like Simon Diamond, Pat Kenny, was a really good agent for our matches, and I had been in the ring with Pat many times, so he knew strengths, weaknesses, things like that, so he could really throw his 2 cents into the match. And
most memorable backstage fight. This may be where Abyss comes back in, or Samoa Joe. I don't know.
Man, I don't think there was many. One that comes to mind that this may throw you off, but one comes to mind back in the early TNA days. This is before we were on Spike or anything like that, but there was a fight between Teddy Hart and CM Punk. Now, I say that I say the Teddy Hart. I saw your reaction, because if anybody knows Teddy, you can definitely see you could put anybody in the sentence with him and see it, because Teddy just had that he could just rub you the wrong way. I'm not sure he really, coming from a Hart family, it's hard to believe, but I'm not sure he really grasped the business. And I think it was just one of those days where Punk had just had enough of it, and they got it on. So I didn't necessarily witness this, but within seconds, minutes, I was being kept up with what was going on. So that was an early one. That kind of died out real quick, but that did happen.
Was that why CM Punk left, you think, or did Teddy Hart get fired? Were there any ramifications? Do you remember?
I don't remember, but I don't think that had to do with Punk leaving. I just think, Punk just was doing whatever he had to do to further his career.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely fine. We'll move on from the game then. I've got a few more questions. I'll do the big ending, and then I'll thank you for your time. Dixie Carter thoughts when she came into the business. What do you think she brought? How did you rank her as a boss?
Oh yeah, in the early days, I was very happy because she. I didn't. Let's see. I didn't know the background with her and Jeff, but when she was brought in, she really. She saved us in a lot of ways. Her and her company Trifecta, they were a marketing agency. So I think they were brought in for that purpose. But then there was interest shown where she was interested in buying the company, and in those early days, she wasn't looking for any on-camera roles or to be part of the writing team or anything like that. So she took control, but she left the wrestling part to Jeff and the others. And I had a great relationship. Storm and I both did. We would spend some time at the office at times. The office was based out of Nashville. Had some lunches with her, her and her husband. Then when we got the chance to meet her mother and father, that was always a pleasure. So I loved what Dixie was bringing at the time. I think in much later years, it got to be a little out of control, but yeah, for the time I spent with her, I always got along with Dixie, and I thought she was great for the company.
When you say in the later years, are you saying like the post Chris Harris in TNA years, basically?
I would say that, yeah. Because she wasn't necessarily featured much when I was still around. I don't know if she was politicking for that. I'm not sure, but later, yeah. I mean, we were seeing her more on camera, and she wanted to be more of one of the stars. And I wasn't there, so I can't talk from experience. But that's just I don't want to say it never works, but it's just so overly done. Putting the owner of a company on TV that I think that spelled the dying days of the TNA.
Well, it's always heel, isn't it? It worked twice. Eric Bischoff was great in the initial. Vince McMahon was the best.
Yeah.
Then,
yeah.
It's 20 odd years since.
Yeah.
And then everybody's trying to do that with Dixie. I'll throw this at you, and you tell me if I'm miles off. Is Dixie didn't know very much about wrestling, and basically, people or more savvy wrestlers would know to buddy up to her, to basically not like basically become her friend, and then they would get the better treatment on television. I mean, would that be fair to say?
I would say that's fair. I wasn't in the conversations, but I did see a lot of we call them the names in the business. I saw them buddy up to her, which, so they're certainly in her ear. And if they know how to work the system, they're going to feed her full of ideas and why this would work instead of this. And I mean, she's going to hear that so much that if she's not a wrestling person, she's going to believe, and then that's going to become her voice. And so I think that, yeah, there was a lot of probably conflict going on with that, but I did witness a lot of times where her having a glass of wine with some of the stars we have.
Quite a tall man, maybe, with the initials.
Yeah, I remember that. I do remember that. Yeah, there was I could definitely Kevin Nash is a charmer, and so he can definitely work his way into that. So credit to him, man. But Yeah, I just think a lot of people were in her ear, and when you're getting filled with things like that, then you're going to wind up being the voice, and so she can make things happen. So that I would say that definitely happened on multiple occasions.
Absolutely. Have we got a few more minutes here, or do you have to go in 5, or where are we time-wise? Because I've
No,
got
we're good, man. We're good.
right. Okay, I've got quite a few more questions, and I'll use my initiative and ask just the best ones at least. 2005, 2006, especially in my eyes, it seems like TNA was really aggressively going after former WWE talent. I know other people are coming like Christian Cage, as he was known there, but who are you most excited from WWE to see come over? There was Team 3D, Kurt Angle, Rhino, a number of others, but who were the guys that you enjoyed talking
I'd
with?
say the one that made the biggest impact was had to be Kurt. Every one of those guys, every one of them was a huge addition for TNA. But I'd say Kurt made the biggest impact. He was the probably the biggest name, and I'd put him on the top of the list as far as in my days of being probably the best wrestler there ever was. So to have him come in there, and to be honest with you, this is just my opinion, but I think he was at the peak of his career in his TNA days. He was so early on in WWE. In his early days, although many have said that he picked it up the fastest out of anybody ever has. But he was still in his first few years of the business. I think he really came into his own in TNA and had some of the best matches of his career. I think even he would say that. So I think Kurt was probably the biggest impact. Christian, definitely. I got to work with Christian and became friends with him, and so I really loved having Christian there. As far as the business side of it, Storm and I were really excited when Team 3D came in because that added a whole new level for us. Not only adding to the storyline, but to get to work with experienced guys like Bubba and Devon. So that was really great for as far as the tag team scene goes.
I remember as a fan watching at the time and thinking, well, this is sort of the Dudley Boys Team 3D's sort of last run. They're going to do maybe 1 or 2 years, fade into the sunset and retire. And I suppose at the time I hadn't realised how good they both were and just how long they could basically prolong their careers as a tag team. Because I thought it's amazing how few tag teams last that long and still have impact after so many years.
Yeah, that's very true. They were in it for the long haul. When they came over, I think they had kind of looked at it, the WWE, as that they were finished there, but they still had so much more to do. And for them to be able to come in and be the experienced older guys, that they could take a lot of the young guys under their wings and really help them. And as much as America's Most Wanted had done, I mean, there was still a lot that we didn't know coming into that. So learning from those guys was just a blessing. They helped a lot of guys like that. LAX learned from them. I even think the Motor City Machine Guns would say that they learned a lot from Team 3D. So they were there to help, but they still had some longevity on them too. So I mean, hell, they got a good run, and then Brother Ray, Bully Ray, whatever you want to call him, he had a great singles run in TNA as well. So yeah, I mean, they were there to really further the company as much as they could.
Did Devon ever accidentally catch you right in the balls when he was doing that diving headbutt WhatsApp thing?
I don't remember a time like that. Devon was pretty safe.
Look at you, at least.
Yeah.
Just go back on Kurt Angle, because I thought I'd bring him up again. You said you thought he was best in TNA, he had his best matches. Now, that's obviously going to be partly the opponents he's working with as well, but how do you think from watching him on WWE television to seeing him live and working with him in TNA, where do you think he improved?
He became a ring general. In his days with WWE, he was in there with guys like Austin, Triple H, The Rock. He was in there with guys that they looked at Kurt as the new up and coming guy. So he was more likely to listen to them and get through a match and and he succeeded in every way possible. With TNA, I felt like he had really come into his own to where, he could lead his matches and he knew, what to do, when to do it. And you put him in there with somebody like an AJ Styles, who had come into his own at the time, and they're going to make magic. And I just think that I remember thinking, because I had only known Kurt from TV and what I saw in the matches kind of as a fan. But seeing Kurt work not only in the ring, but seeing how he conducted himself outside the business, I just looked at him and I was like, that is a machine, man. Because his injuries had started to stack up then. So I saw the way he would walk in the back, and he was really hurting and sometimes in bad shape. At least that's what you think. But I'm telling you, man, when he goes through that curtain, that music hits, he goes through the curtain, you would never know that. And he gets in the ring, and the man is just a machine, and he can go all day long. So those are those subtle differences are the things that I noticed. There's no denying his in-ring work, but just to see him go out there and just perform was just amazing.
Was there any times where Kurt Angle was doing something in the ring and it just seemed too risky, and you're like, just in case his head fell off his shoulders or something, because he had a terrible neck, he broke it twice. I mean, it's amazing he was wrestling at all.
Oh, sure. I mean, yeah, you think that all the time because he came in with neck injury. So anything revolving around the neck, I always got scared when he did his moonsault.
Yeah.
I always got scared of that because that can jar a neck, and then obviously his knees. You get your knees banged up there, and then I remember when he went climbing up the cage and did his moonsault off the cage. I thought, what are you thinking, man? But that's just shows you, what goes on in his head, man. He's willing to put his body on the line just to perform for the fans and to make it an incredible match.
Yeah, absolutely. I am sorry, I'm going to skip some stuff here, and we're going to go straight to the split up between you and James Storm. Who came to you with the idea, or was this something where you thought America's Most Wanted have just reached the end of their line, or why the split up?
I think it was talked about with all of us. I don't know if it was necessarily an idea, but we had a pretty good run, kind of what you said before about Team 3D. They've just been together for so long. I think Storm and I were looking to see what we could do in a singles career. So, that was just the natural progression. We had been together, I guess, 5 years at the time, had a great run. But we were just interested in seeing what else we could do. So, and everybody was on board with it. So, we just decided to make it into a good story. And then it was time to see what Storm and I could do on our own, especially against each other.
Do you think the fans bought it completely, or do you think they were just disappointed that the team had broken up and wish you'd just get back together thing?
I think it was a little of both. I mean, there's the loyal America's Most Wanted fans out there that loved it, whether babyface or heel. They just loved us being together. And I've talked about this many times, in those years of TNA, tag teams just weren't a big thing around the wrestling world. I mean, WWE just wasn't doing a whole lot with tag teams. So I think we got the people to care again, that, there was a main tag team, a good tag team, and it could tell the stories. And we just had some really great programs, thanks to the writing. And it was just people just took notice to us. So it was disappointing, I think, when it happened. But that's to a lot of people, but that's just a natural progression. And honestly, I think a lot of people wanted to see what we could do on our own. And, we delivered.
Was anybody in the back trying to keep you together, or who was against it, let's say?
Well, one conversation I remember having with Bubba, and he was just letting me know, which, looking back makes a lot of sense. I don't want to say he was against it. He was just trying to give me a different perspective that, hey, it's not a bad thing to be known in the wrestling business as part of a tag team. You can have a huge success, you can make a lot of money. And so that's not necessarily, something that has to happen. Even though those guys tease it a couple times along the way, they always wind up back together, and that's obviously what they're most known for. So I think he was just trying to give me a different perspective that, don't necessarily push for this so much, because it's not a bad path to follow to be in a tag team your whole career. And I while I listened to him, and I certainly appreciated him even taking the time to say that, I think at that point, we were both just thinking, well, let's see where this goes. And, if it doesn't work out, you can always, come back together. So, but yeah, I mean, I don't want to say anybody was necessarily against it, because that's just the way the wrestling business is. You're together as long as you can make a good name for yourself. And I'm not for the tag teams that get together for a few months and then right away they're split up, they feud. I mean, it's just, there's no emotion into that anymore. So with us, we had a lot weighing on this. We had a lot of, background to help fuel this feud.
You guys break up, obviously, and the big thing that happens is you get a beer bottle smashed in your face, and you are temporarily blinded in one eye. And at some point, I think you say you have 30% vision. Did you do the old school thing of going out in public with an eye patch on?
Hell yeah, I did.
Did you really?
Yeah, I'm so old school, man. I felt like if we were going to, try to make this thing believable, I mean, because the thing is, the fans knew where we were hanging out after the events. So, if you're sitting at a table, especially if I'm sitting with Storm, sitting at a table with Storm, no eye patch, I mean, that's just calling bullshit to it right there. So yeah, Storm and I stayed away from each other. If I was going to be seen at all, I probably didn't even go out as much as I normally did during that time with the eye patch. But if I was going to be seen, it was going to be with an eye patch. So, some people call it crazy, but hey, man, you got to live it.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right too. Absolutely right too. I can't agree more there. That also leads to the blindfold match at, is it Lockdown? I'm sorry, I can't remember the TNA. Yeah, TNA Lockdown.
Yeah, that was Lockdown.
Yeah, sorry, 2007. Before we talk about the blindfold match, it ends up going a bit wrong because the blindfolds fall off. Why would TNA do an entire pay-per-view of cage matches? I mean, doesn't that just ruin the idea of a cage match in the first place because it's not special anymore?
Yeah, I completely agree with you on that. I never liked that from the beginning. Again, this is an old school way of thinking, but cage match was the ultimate end all be all. You work towards that match, and it's two guys that want to just tear each other apart. So to put an entire pay-per-view together, you're basically throwing guys in a normal match, maybe for the first time, and it's a cage match. It just made no sense to me. On paper, it's maybe intriguing, thinking, oh, this whole pay-per-view is a bunch of cage matches, and it's called Lockdown, and we're in the 6 Sides of Steel era, so it can be exciting, but when you look at the psychology with the wrestling from a wrestling standpoint, it just didn't make any sense. So yeah, I wasn't a fan of it.
No, that's fair enough. So let's say 6 cage matches happen before yours. You and James go in there. The blindfold match, the blindfolds keep falling off. Who designed those blindfolds?
I wish I could tell you, man. I remember when they came to us with it, I was just thinking, well, how are we supposed to keep them on? And I mean, there wasn't a whole lot of preparation involved in that. And that pay-per-view in particular, because even the cage we used wasn't the typical steel cage that used today or prior to that. It was some makeshift. I can't even remember where it came from, but I remember being there during the day, and all the guys were like, you got to be kidding me. So there was just so many things wrong with that pay-per-view altogether. I believe it was in St. Louis. The crowd I loved the crowd. I mean, they were there. They were really, they wanted to see some action. So yeah, I mean, that's just one of those things. You just have to work it. You have to really put some thought into that. You're going to have to save a lot of the cage spots for the main events. So the opening match isn't going to have a lot of cage involvement in it, and that's just when you have to work your position in the card to make it make sense. At least that's my viewpoint on it.
At least yours wasn't electrified, in quotation marks.
Yeah, you just add that to the list. So yeah.
Did you study any old blindfold matches to, get some ideas of how to put the match together?
Yeah, I really studied Jake and Martel.
It's a fantastic match, that, as well. If anybody says it isn't, you couldn't be more wrong.
Yeah, I mean, and they pulled it off. So that was the match I was going to watch to try to make something work with us.
Do you know, at the beginning, and I didn't see this until many years after I first saw the tape, was there's something massively wrong with the match. It's right at the beginning. They put the bag over Jake's head, and then he reaches under and scratches his nose, and you can see his hand through the bag.
I probably have seen that, but now I didn't remember that.
Yeah, no one seems to remember that as well. I may be the only person who ever noticed that, but if you look at it, then look out for it. I'm going to move on to the WWE run. I apologise. I'm sorry, but I'm going to ask about it. I know it's not the most fun topic for you. Then we'll go to the main event, the little rapid fire game. Then I will thank you for your time. WWE/ECW. Who broached who first?
I think I was in a time where I was about to re-sign with TNA. There just wasn't a lot going on at the time. And, I wasn't getting any younger. I had done I had counted up the years in my head, and I figured if I was going to make a run for this, it would have to be now. But there just wasn't a whole lot going on. I felt like that I was going to be, after Storm and I split and we had our feud and, got some heads turning with that. And I worked with some great guys like Dustin and Christian. And I just felt like there was some really, really good days ahead it was like it just fell off a cliff. And there was nothing going on. I approached them several times about, what are we doing? What can we do? And I was just so eager to really do something, and I wanted to work. There just wasn't a whole lot going on, and it was a timing thing. And we call it in business sending out feelers. I wanted to see if there was any interest, and they made it like it was a huge interest. And me over there, and so but I mean, my heart told me I wanted to stay with TNA. There's no getting around that. I mean, I wanted to make something work with TNA, but it just wasn't happening. So I mean, that's just kind of how it went, and I just felt like I needed to do at that time what was best for me, and I didn't know how many bumps I had left in me. So it was just a decision that I made, and probably one of the hardest decisions I ever had to make. And I soon found out when I went over that it wasn't all that was cracked up to be.
No, exactly. I will get onto that in a second. Was there a money issue maybe? Because Dixie Carter was throwing, a lot of money at WWE stars coming over. Was she not as incentivizing to homegrown talent to keep them there?
Yeah, that was a big issue, and it wasn't even such a matter of, hey, I want to make so much money. I mean, I was happy with what I was making, but yeah, they were bringing in, they were just signing up all the WWE guys and pushing them over a lot of the homegrown stars. And by that point, things had been done. I mean, after all these years, they had made their stars, and they were just kind of being held down with a lot of the newer acquisitions. So, but what really got me, not only it was obvious where a lot of the money was going. Well, then when in contract negotiations, they wanted to give me a pay cut. So, yeah, I mean, just things like that added on. And I was thinking, I'm not going to get rich at WWE, but at least I'm making something there. Whereas TNA, the place I had given so much to, they were coming down on a whole completely different scale of a contract, and on top of that, it was a pay cut. So, yeah, I mean, just things just didn't make sense to me, and I guess that's why I was leading myself to do what I did.
And it's like any other business that isn't wrestling or anything, pretty much, is the longer you work there, you get automatic pay rises. So why should that be different anywhere else, really? I suppose, who knows? But
yeah,
with well, I'm presuming that James Storm's contract was going to be up at the same time as yours. Was there any thought to you guys reuniting and doing a tag team in WWE? You already said they weren't keen on tag teams, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, we had talked about it, and I felt like we had more credibility as a team going in. But even though all of our previous contracts we kind of did together, this was one. Maybe it was because we had split and we weren't a tag team anymore. But he wound up going ahead and signing with TNA. So that was what he felt like he needed to do. So I knew there wasn't a tag team run in for us. But you just touched on it. I mean, had we gone over there as America's Point, it wouldn't have lasted no more than a year, I would think, before they wouldn't have done anything with us. So, yeah, I mean, Storm just felt like that's what he had to do, and he was comfortable staying. And I was trying to balance both and see what would work best for me.
Was it before you signed with WWE, or after that they told you can't be Chris Harris, you need to be something of our creation?
It was after I signed, but to be honest with you, that wasn't a surprise. I mean, you can't go into WWE thinking, hey, I'm gonna everything that I've built is going to be. It just, yeah, I kind of went in there knowing that there was no Wildcat, there was no Chris Harris. I assumed they would probably change the name.
Yeah. So you go to ECW. In fact, actually, before we talk about the ECW thing, what was the brainstorming session like, and who was it between, where they decided to call you Braden Walker, and what you would be going forward? Who was sort of in this meeting?
Oh, there was no brainstorming. It was like, I mean, it took them no time at all. They came to me with a list of names, and I kind of shuffled through a few, gave my input. I even asked a couple of the guys that were there. I think I remember talking to Mick Foley about it, Taz a little bit. He was doing commentary at the time. So, yeah, I got a little input, and so I gave my ideas to it, but that's what they wound up coming at. But this was all in a day's process, and when I say day, I mean like a matter of hours. So there wasn't a whole lot of thought going into, like I just said. I knew that it would change, but I thought there would be more thought put into it than there was.
Yeah. Who were you dealing with in the office at this time?
Well, I guess it was. John Laurinaitis was the talent relation. So it was him along with the contract. Everyone else, I guess it was just maybe agents, or I don't even think I was necessarily dealing with writers. I had a meeting with the writers. When I went up to Connecticut, I had a meeting with the writers in the headquarters, and that I felt like that meeting it went long. We threw a lot of ideas around. And when I say with the writers, I'm not talking like 2 or 3 writers like it used to be. I mean, this was a table full of people, like the big round table. But it just seemed like, by the time TV rolled around the very next week, all of that was out the window. I mean, it was like, it was almost as if we'd never had the conversation. Everything we had talked, because I remember leaving that meeting feeling pretty good about it. They wanted some background. I gave them some background, and we talked about some ideas that I may have had just to throw at them and let them be the writers, the creative minds that they are. And we came back, and it was nothing.
So you go on TV. Whose idea was the black singlet?
I think I don't remember whose idea it was. I did have a hand in that, which I didn't necessarily mind so much because I knew it would be a different name, a different look. But I was also on board with it just because it was to me, it was like a homage to Perfect, to Kurt Hennig. He had made a career with the singlet, and I just thought, hey, let's change up the look. I didn't mind doing that. And so yeah, I was okay with that. It turned out to be so ordinary because they made it in a day's notice. I think the first time I went out, it was just all black. There wasn't anything on it, just a black singlet. So when you have no build up for anything to begin with, and then you go out looking so bland, it's not going to work. I mean, you're not giving the fans anything to get behind.
Yeah, exactly. I'll ask a couple more questions, and then I won't depress you anymore with the with this. You were there for 2 weeks. You do 3 matches, and one promo, which is very famous. Knock knock. Where did knock knock come from? Was this just a WWE writers turns up and gives you a piece of paper thing?
No, it didn't even get that far. We were doing we were doing the promo in the back, and yeah, I mean, I think the name had just come up probably that day, and just the way the whole it was just a cluster. It just, we would do one take, and then they want to do another one and do different verbiage, and then let's try this and let's try it. It was actually that crazy. They were just saying, say this, and then it would change every time. And they came up with this knock knock, I'm gonna knock your brains out, which I'm thinking even then standing there, I'm like, that's the stupidest line I've ever heard in my life. It makes no sense. And but they wanted me to do it, so I was the mentality is you do what you're told. So I said it and did it, and that's the one they wound up bearing. And yeah, I mean, it was as laughable to everybody else as it was to me, but that's what I had to do, and so I did it. And yeah, it was just I mean, just one thing on top of the other as far as a disaster this was becoming.
Yeah, because we've said before, you're not the type to voice your concerns, or at least immediately. You'll go with you more go with the flow. At any point, were you just thinking, please, can we just not use that one, or please, can we just try it this way?
It was that one got most known because that's what was aired, but there were so many others that weren't. That it wasn't just a matter of, oh God, don't air that one. I didn't want any of them to air. All I wanted was some thought put into this. That's all I wanted. We got $1 billion company, and they're getting ready to put something on worldwide TV that had come up with in a matter of minutes. It just made no sense. So yeah, there was a lot that was just so much wrong with that. But it was done in a room of a camera crew. Some of the producers, I think Bruce Pritchard was the producer of that one. And he, a lot of people don't know this time wise, but he was gone from the company shortly after that. So he may have just been at his wits' end and just throwing his hands up, like, whatever, I don't care. I don't know. I can't speak for Bruce, but yeah, it was just a complete mess. There was just no thought put into it whatsoever.
No, and it only lasts a couple of weeks, and then you go back to TNA. And I'm sorry, I'm rushing through this bit quite a bit because we'll do the main event, and I've taken up a lot of your time already. And then so we'll get through to the main event right now. Apologies for so many questions about that. I know. It was a raw deal. I understand completely. But this is the main event that I do every week, unless Dutch Mantel's on. And then I write a 3-page script, and we've done 3 hours, and we're still not even halfway through it. So, firing line, I call it. I'm going to give you some names. All TNA edition again. You tell me what you think about them. I imagine for the most part you're going to think they're all great guys. If there's a funny story to throw in, please do. Quite a few names, so you can give as short or long an answer as you can. The first one is, and big shout out to him as well, because I think he's dealing with cancer again at this point, Don West.
Yeah, Don's one of my favorite people with TNA. I don't think he was given enough credit for what he did. He was not a wrestling guy when he was brought in. He was pretty much a good salesman. But you set him next to Mike Tenay, and Mike was just so great at. I mean, they became great friends, and Mike coached him in the wrestling aspect of it. And you put Don West's personality on there; they were just great on camera, and I really enjoyed it. And some people say Don West was over the top, but I mean, that was intensity. That was his excitement. He was legitimately getting excited in these matches over his commentary. So I always said, and this won't happen, so let's not get ahead of ourselves, but if I was ever have another match in TNA, I would certainly want Mike Tenay and Don West to come out for that. So yeah, I mean, prayers are with Don. He's going through a tough time right now. So yeah, but I love Don.
Just because you mentioned him, I hadn't written this on the list, but Mike Tenay, apart from being a commentator, did he do producing of backstage segments as well? What were his other roles in the company?
I don't remember him doing producing. I think he was. I don't even know if he was part of the writing team, but I think in their production meetings, he would certainly throw his 2 cents in because I mean, we make a joke that he's the professor of wrestling. I mean, he could just take any crap you throw at him and he'll try to make some sense out of it. But Mike was just yeah, he was so great at that. But I really had good communication with Mike because I took it upon myself that every match I had that was going to be aired and they were going to be commentating over it, I would get with Mike and sometimes Don, and I would kind of lay it out, the story that I had envisioned in my mind, and so that they could get on board, and they're the narrators. So I do my part in the ring, they're the narrators, and if they're telling the same story I'm trying to get across in the ring, we're on the same page. So that was what was wonderful about Mike, and he could always do that. He always came through.
Absolutely. Next one, SoCal Val.
SoCal Val. I think she was a very underrated talent. She was ring girl for many years, but she could also perform a really good character. I think they finally used her in the Jay Lethal Sanjay Dutt angle that they did, and I think she hit a home run. She was a great character on TV. She was getting it done. People loved her, but then she turned heel and they wound up hating her. So I mean, for you to have the talent to be able to do that, I mean, it was great, and everybody loved her. I mean, she was always smiles in the back. So everybody loved SoCal Val.
Yeah, and she lives in England now. She lives a couple of hours down the road from me. Weird.
Yeah, I heard she moved over there. Yeah, got married and moved over there.
Yeah, she lives in the only. I won't tell you where she lives. Well, I can tell you. I won't tell you. Lex Luger.
Lex Luger. Yeah, he wasn't there very long. I guess that was a name at the time, being brought in. Okay, how are we going to use him? How are we going to, make this work? But yeah, I don't know the inner dealings with it, but I think he did something with AJ for a little bit to kind of help elevate AJ a little bit. But yeah, he wasn't around very long, so I'm not sure if he was dealing with something at the time, or I don't know what was going on with that. But yeah, he wasn't around very long.
Yeah. Next name is Stooge for the Dirt Sheets, maybe Terry Taylor.
Oh yeah. Well, I'm going to catch so much heat for saying that.
I'll bleep that out if you like.
Yeah, I love Terry. I always got along great with Terry. He great mind for the business. Certainly behind the scenes. I mean, he may be more known for that in his wrestling days than his in-ring talent. But yeah, talent relations for all the main companies. But he was somebody I really enjoyed talking to about the business. And when you had to talk business, you had to talk business, and that isn't always a pleasant conversation. But I always felt like Terry was good to have around. I mean, he was always an asset, doing something. Some people looked at him as a stooge. I never got that side of him, at least not to my knowledge. But yeah, I think Terry was great to have around, and I always enjoyed hearing his input. And even after the TNA days, I felt like I carried on a relationship for a while with him.
Next one's Johnny Fairplay.
Johnny Fairplay. Man, the guy loves the business, and he loved being out there, being a heel, which is what he was good at. But I'm not sure where that was going to, how far that was going to go, or where it was going to take him. I think he was probably used a little too much at the time, but not too much, just too higher of a level. I mean, he would have probably been good as maybe a manager type role. I think he would have really excelled in that. But man, the guy could get heat.
Yeah. Homicide.
I got to work with Homicide a lot in our LAX AMW days. Hugely talented. He was really great for the X division. I think he really helped define the X division. But yeah, in the tag team, I mean, it's the same kind of thing. They put those two together, put Conan with them. Man, that was magic. So I enjoyed working with Homicide, and we carried our feud over and into the bars too, and had some quite a few pool games with those guys. Some 2-on-2. So the LAX AMW feud continued on into the pool.
Okay, because Homicide isn't here at the moment anyway to talk about it. Who was the better pool player?
Well, of course it was us.
Oh, fair enough then. Goldilocks.
Goldilocks. She, man, I was always impressed with Goldie. She came in. I'm not sure how much of a wrestling background she had. I don't think much, but she certainly adapted to it very quickly. She was just brought in as an interview girl and took control of the interviews. Just, if you know her, she's got a strong personality, so she can very much handle that. And in the interviews, and then in later times, they used her also as a manager and did a little storyline with her, a little angle. And I thought she was a great character. So I was very impressed with what she was doing with that at the time with Abyss. And I think Eric Watts was involved in that. So yeah, Goldie was another one of those. And she was in on the production meetings. So she was very much a part of, putting everything together and being a part of that. But I think Goldie would have been great. I wish she would have stuck around a little longer because I think she could have done so much more to help the company.
This next one is just a fella who had main event pretty much written all over him, then dropped off the face of the earth, Monty Brown.
I agree. I think they really missed the boat on Monty. He was one of those guys I never had heard of before TNA, but he came in and he checked all the boxes. I mean, Monty, he looked great, had great promos, but most of all, the way he carried himself. He, I guess coming from the NFL, he carried himself as a professional. So I thought it was a no-brainer for him and a program with him and Jeff. For the NWA title, I thought that would have been great, and I think Monty would have become a great world champion for us. Unfortunately, that didn't happen. For whatever reason, he decided to step aside as well, and things didn't go well for him with WWE as well. And I just felt like TNA could have done so much more than he was the whole package, man. He had everything.
Yeah, I think he was sort of somewhere in the middle on the ECW, the WWE ECW thing, and I think he had some personal problems with, with his family. He had to go look after some kids or something, and then that was it. He was done.
Well, they weren't doing much with him to begin with, but yeah, I think he probably came to the point where he had to make a choice between work and his family, and he had to take care of his family.
Yeah, good for him. I'll give you a few more. Elix Skipper.
Boy, with the Daredevil. Yeah, we had some great matches with Triple X and Elix. I'd known Elix from WCW. He was a power plant guy. I had a singles match with him in WCW. So I'd known Elix for a long time. And then when we this angle with Triple X just became something. And a lot of people forget about our original cage match back in the pay-per-view days, which was incredible. It was so hard to believe that we could top that. With the 6 sides of steel, but we did. And what people want to hear, great talent. But yeah, what a lot of people want to hear about is that Hurricane Rana, man. He had come to me that day and asked about it, and right away I shot it down. It was just really dangerous. Now, keep in mind, a lot of people they forget that was nothing. That was not something new for Elix. He had in his matches, he made it a thing for him to walk the top rope to do a Hurricane Rana. So that was kind of a thing for him already in his matches. So to do it here, it was just taking it to an elevated step. So when he came and suggested it, I wasn't really on it. He pushed a little bit. I still wasn't having any of it, and I guess he'd just given up. And I guess I just thought about it for a little bit, and I wound up going back to him And this wasn't too long before, we were about to perform. I went to him and I said, can you really do this? Can you really make this work? And without hesitation, the guy looked at me, he said, I can do it. He said, I can do it. And I think the confidence that he had in pulling that off is what sealed it for me. I was like, well, let's do it. I mean, that was one of those matches, we were going all out anyway. I mean, we were the main event. We were going to deliver on everything. And that was his part in it. So when I saw his confidence, I was willing to, let's do what we have to do to pull it off. So, I think he'll forever be known in TNA days.
Yeah, but there's worse things to be known for, certainly. Is that kind of move from that kind of height anything you can prepare for in any way, or do you just have to do it that one time and just hope for the best?
Oh yeah, there was no practice in that. No walking through it. I mean, you talk about it, and we know how it should go in our head. But yeah, you can't prepare for that move. I mean, you can't get around gravity. I mean, once you go, and at least on my part, once you go, you're going to hit that mat at some point. It felt like a long trip.
What was the legitimate height, do you believe?
I don't remember. I mean, if you look at those cages, though, it was definitely higher than most cage matches. I don't know about nowadays. I can't vouch for that, but the cages were just above the top rope, and this cage, you could stand on the top rope and you still weren't going to hit the top of the cage. So it was pretty high up there. I mean, I remember that. I don't know how many feet, but if I had to take a guess, maybe 15 feet. I'm not sure.
I'll give you a few more, and then I will thank you for your time. Slick Johnson, the most muscly referee in the world.
Yeah, Slick had his own style. I met him in WCW, and a cool guy, great to hang out with. I know he was friends with Jeff. I wasn't always a fan of when he came out in his attire, in his shorts.
Yes.
But like I said, he had his own style, and Slick wanted to make that work. So, but great referee, good mind for the business. I always try to include the referees in our matches, just because I feel like they can give a lot of input in it as well. I mean, they're not just a sidebar out there. They're the third man in the ring. So I always try to give as much credit as I can to the referees of making the matches just as much as the participants.
Did you ever get to a point as an old school, believer in old school philosophy, that the referee should be not really noticed?
There are times, sure. I mean, you don't want the attention to go away from what's being performed in the ring. But as far as communication goes, I 100% believe that they should be involved with that. Some can get away with just knowing the finish of a match and are good enough to get through. But I believe that the more communication there is between you and your opponent, especially a tag match. I mean, there's 5 guys out there then. So I believe, the more communication you have, the better, involving the referees as well. Jeff Jarrett has a great line saying, over communicate. So, you can't communicate. You can't do too much of that. So, the referees are definitely a big part of that match.
Yeah. Ron Killings.
Ron's great, man. For a guy, I mean, I don't know how old he is, but he still looks young. But he's had a great career. Had his little stint with WWE in the beginning, really made a name for himself in TNA, NWA World Champion. Ron's got it all, man. He's very athletic, very talented, knows the business. Again, another funny guy, good to hang out with outside. Had a couple road trips with him. And then he makes it back. Actually, him and I were signed at the same time with WWE. So, that just goes to show you they put a lot of thought into what they were doing with him, and he made it work. Whereas, there wasn't a whole lot of thought into mine. But I think it's incredible that the guy's been there that long, making a career. He's, probably making great money. And who knows how much longer he can go. He doesn't look like he's anytime near future slowing down.
Oh, he's at least 50. I know that, and he doesn't look it. I'll tell you that. Jim Mitchell.
Man, Jim was great in his role. You could put anybody, him be a manager for anybody, and he could get them over. He could, bring a lot of attention to that. I thought his gimmick was great. Got to work with him very heavily with the new church angle. He was out there. I think he did a great job with Abyss. Great talker. His promos are great. He's very intense. Sinister. I mean, that was part of his name at one time. I mean, he's very sinister, and he was. I thought he was a great addition to TNA and getting any one of his guys over, making that work. Very impressive, and always enjoyed working with him.
Jim Mitchell once coined, when Dixie started putting herself on screen in acting roles and stuff, he coined the phrase Meryl Streep Carter, which I loved.
That sounds like him.
A couple more then. Scott Steiner.
Wow, Scott, what a dick in WCW. He just hadn't had the best reputation. I think he knew it. He was kind of a bully around there, I guess. Nothing personal with any of our guys, I don't think. He was just Scott. And when he came to TNA, he was just, I think he really wanted the company to work too. He's very close with Jeff. So I think he had Jeff's best interests in mind. He was a great acquisition. I mean, huge name in the business. And I got the team with him. I got to work against him. So Scott was fun. He became fun. I mean, he kind of lost that hard edge of himself, didn't take himself quite so serious anymore. And he was just really fun to be around, great to talk to. I just never imagined myself, sitting down talking to Scott Steiner, but, such a cool guy, man.
Well, what was your favorite promo of Scott's?
Well, I guess the one that's been played over and over again, with all of his addition and multiplication, and but you got to. I mean, people forget Scott wasn't a bad promo guy. He had a couple craziness out there, but he was just an intense guy. From his early days on to his heavy WCW days. I mean, he was believable. I mean, you believe when he said he was kicking your ass, you believe he could do it.
Last one then, Jim Cornett.
Wow, Jim Cornett. I love Cornett. I listen to his podcasts. I love. I mean, you talk about old school. I mean, that guy takes it back. But still to this day, I mean, sorry about that. Not getting the attention.
Your dog's a Vince Russo fan.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, I'd loved. I think he's he'll go down in history as one of the best managers in the business. A crazy mind for the business. When we got him and he was the authority figure, I thought it was great. Thought it was great for Jim to be put in that role. He couldn't do the manager roles anymore, couldn't move around as much anymore, but I thought he was great in that kind of the authority figure. I thought it was great. I had some on-camera antics with him, but he's a great addition to any company. He's just very opinionated. That rubs a lot of people the wrong way. But he at least you can say he watches AEW. He gives his opinion. I don't always agree with it. I mean, I think he's very hard on them, but he's done everything in the business. I mean, he's even run his own company. So, I think I always enjoy hearing the opinions of Jim Cornette.
Did you ever see steam shoot out of his ears when he tried to make sense of something that Vince Russo had put into the script?
Oh, I think we've all seen that. What's funny is I was there when they were both there, and it just never. I don't know if I was so focused on what I was doing, but I never saw anything that stood out. I was there for the infamous when they were scouting talent for TNA in the Nashville days. I remember him going after Ed Ferrara. Vince wasn't there, but I remember him going after him for the whole Oklahoma gimmick that he had done. And I remember hearing about that day, but never saw anything between him and Vince myself. And I guess I'm kind of glad I didn't, because he can get pretty hot about it. So yeah, I mean, that visual of steam shooting out his ears was probably pretty common to him.
Everybody knows watching that Jim Cornette is my absolute favorite topic to talk about. He's the most fascinating of personalities, definitely. Listen, thank you so much for spending so much time with me. I don't wear glasses while doing this. I've just craned my neck in to see how long we've been going. I'm really sorry we went a bit over, but you've been such a great guy to talk to. And I didn't even ask you all the questions I wanted to ask as well. So,
I appreciate your research, man. I mean, you came fully prepared. So, no problem, man. I have really enjoyed myself. This was great.
Yeah, thank you very much for joining us. You've got to hit us with some plugs. Hit me with your best shot, as somebody sang.
Oh, wow. A plug?
Yeah. You've got Instagrams. You've got a bit of merch coming out, I'm sure.
Yeah, let me get this so I can get this out. Yeah, I mean, best way to get a hold of me is Twitter at AMW Wildcat. My Instagram, AMW Wildcat Chris Harris. We got merch out there. Anybody looking for bookings? I don't wrestle, but I still do appearances and signings, things like that. So, I'm still very much involved in wrestling. I love it. I love the part I play right now. So, it's great, man.
So what are your bookings then? Are you just doing like signing? Because I saw a photo of you recently with James Storm, for a bit of a reunion type thing. Is that the kind of thing you're looking for bookings these days?
Yeah, that was a convention. We did a little TNA reunion. So there was a few other guys there. Jeff Jarrett was there. D'Lo Brown, Goldilocks, Johnny Swinger was there. So that was a lot of fun. We did a little Q&A with the crowd. Those are always fun. I do a lot of conventions, but even just regular bookings, I can do anything on the show. Just don't do matches anymore, but a lot of fun. But those bookings you can contact Laurie Mahoney. It's Laurie at thelowmopro.com.
Is this something that I need to see written down, and then I'll find it, or you email me and I'll put it in all the literature that goes with all these clips that I'm going to post.
There we go.
But are you done with matches because you're just sick of it, or are you injured, or you've just basically had enough?
No, I wouldn't say I'm sick of it. If I could still perform at the level I used to, I would love to do it, but I know I'm very limited. There are injuries, health issues, just things like that come with getting older. But I loved everything that I was able to do, so I have no regrets.
Absolutely. Look, I'm 35, and I've still got the trampoline. I went trampolining with my niece, and really? God damn it! Just 1 hour of trampolining these days, and I'm done. So.
I don't think I'd make it.
Yeah, if you don't keep it up, then you lose it, I suppose. But or in my trampolining career, at least. Listen, thank you so much for joining us, everybody. For joining us, I'll catch you again next week. I don't know who the guest is, but I'll work that out, and you will get a show, I'm sure. And thank you so much, Chris, for spending so much time and entertaining us.
I appreciate it, James. Thanks for having me, man.